Okay, so welcome everybody. This is going to be week 2 of the Competitive College Club, where as a reminder we're going to do a series of 18 weeks to try to help you prepare to apply and study at U.S. schools, universities, whether it be undergraduate, graduate, or graduate degrees. For this week, we're going to be talking about researching schools, working out where you apply. And I'm going to talk about some different ways that you can do this, how to narrow it down, and how to do some of the research. We'll also talk about some different examples. So, the first thing that we're going to do is just a little bit of a review from last week, and that is the fact that there's a lot of U.S. universities. And you, as an individual, are hopefully very unique, right? Yeah, I hope so. I think so. My mother always said I was special, so I hope your mother's told you you were special too. So it's not just a matter of identifying schools, but it's a matter of matching schools that fit you. So to talk about that, we're going to help you have tools to find that fit. We're going to look at some different search engines and rankings. We're going to look at some different scholarship search engines, and we're also going to talk about some tools that are available in our IRC, or alternatively in our American Corners, if you're familiar with our American Corners in Oran, Constantine, and Workla. Finally, we're going to talk about how to develop your spreadsheet, and then how to reach out and contact universities to market yourself. Now, later on in the next few weeks, I'm going to be putting you directly in touch with U.S. higher education universities. I'm also going to be putting your information directly in touch with U.S. higher education universities. One of the things that we'd also like to do is we'd also like to put together a profile of you so that we'll present the best case forward so that universities can contact you with additional information and things like that, okay? Because it's great for you to talk to me, and it's great for universities to talk to me, but I already did that whole study thing, so it's time for you guys. So, as we talked about last time, there's 5,000 U.S. universities that offer undergraduate degrees and 1,700 that offer graduate degrees. Now, this is a lot. Each of them is essentially independently managed. They're not directly controlled by the United States government. How many Algerian universities are there?
Maybe 15.
Oh, more than
50.
50? 50, 100? Yeah.
Like one university in every wilaya.
There's what, 52, 54 wilayas?
There is universities and there is high schools.
48 wilayas? So probably around 100 universities, that sounds about right. So 1,700 is a lot more. So how do you pick a school? There's bad reasons to pick a school. One of them is it has the best reputation. Okay? This doesn't mean that reputation isn't important. And this doesn't mean that if you have the right profile, you shouldn't only be applying to the best schools. The reason why it can be a bad reason, though, is if you only want to go to the best school humanly possible that has the highest ranking, is that what's most important? That's what's most important to the university. Universities want to be highly ranked. But we're not talking about a university, we're talking about you. So if I had gone to Harvard, it probably would have been a bad idea. Why? It's a really high academic level. And when I was 18, I might not have been ready for that. And I might have not succeeded, right? So it's great to get accepted into Harvard. What's even better? To graduate from Harvard. It's if you drop out of Harvard, unless you're Zuckerberg, the guy that invented Facebook, he dropped out, he was okay. But most people that drop out of the school don't do very well. So that's something that you may need to reevaluate. We're going to talk about that at the end. It might not be a master's degree that's the best fit for you. It might be a community college. It might be business English classes. It might be redoing an undergraduate degree. It all depends on what you want and what's going to make you successful. So that's where it comes to your fit. You know, if Harvard wanted to send me on a full scholarship to get a mechanical engineering degree, that would be great, right? Yeah. Except I don't want to be a mechanical engineer. So it's not so good. So it's about you and about your outcome. I've already heard about it. There's 1,700 schools, and there's opportunities that you're not going to have even begun to hear about. And then finally, it's in a city I want to visit for tourism. Has anybody in here ever been to New York City? You've been in New York City? Did you like it?
Yeah.
It's a great city to visit. Would you want to live there? In fact, my brother's going to enroll in law school in New York City right now in the fall. He's going to enroll in law school. It's a great city to visit, but he's going to have a lot of trouble living there. Why?
We need a lot of money.
Very, very, very expensive. Very expensive. Your housing costs more. Your food costs more. Your transportation costs more. So you have to be able to think about your budget. What's something else too? When I was young, if I lived in New York City, what is there in New York City? There's a lot of different distractions, right? Okay? And it might not necessarily be the best program. So when you look at schools, if you study in the United States, you can always catch a bus to New York City and visit it for a weekend. But in terms of being able to live there, think about your budget. Your budget will go a lot farther in a rural area in the United States than it will in a major metropolitan area. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I see students come in and say, oh, I love New York, I want to visit New York. So I'll study in New York, right? It's maybe not the best idea. So the answer's got to be to find the perfect fit for yourself. What's your program? What's your outcome? What can you afford?
I have a question.
Sure.
Universities which have not a good reputation, does it mean that it has lower academic level?
No, not necessarily. And in fact, quite the opposite. What will happen is the quality of the education that you get at a Harvard versus the quality of the education that you get at, say, the 100th best university or the 300th best university in the United States can be very, very similar. And I think, back here in Algeria, the outcome of both of those degrees will be very, very similar. Because how many Algerians have American university degrees, right? American university degree makes you very marketable to a company. It makes you very competitive. Sorry, go ahead.
It only matters that you got your degree from America. So
right. There are a few universities in the United States, just a very few that are not legitimate. If it sounds like it's too, welcome.
Hello, sorry for that.
If it sounds like it's too good to be true, then it probably is. So if they say we'll give you a PhD for $650 in 6 weeks, it's probably a scam, just like the Nigerian prince with his bank account.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would consider lower ranked universities because again, it's about the outcome. And in the United States, if you gave me a choice between I went to William & Mary, and if you gave me a choice, that's 31st. It's pretty good. If you gave me a choice to go to Harvard, I would have taken it because early in your professional career, when you are competing with many people with US degrees, sometimes employers will use that as a tiebreaker. It gives you a little bit of an extra advantage, right? Because it's harder to get into Harvard than it is to get into a lower ranked university. So that means that somebody probably had a little bit of an better academic record. And that means that that person probably is more likely to be a more successful person. However, after the first couple years, it becomes on your work experience, right? What have you done? How have you performed? You can go to Harvard and be a total loser when it comes to your job, and nobody's going to hire you. If you've been fired from 5 jobs because you can't do anything. When you think about the context here in Algeria or here elsewhere in the region, just having a major US university degree is really, really attractive. Finally, to put it another way, let's say you go to the 100th ranked university in the United States. Okay? That means that probably worldwide, it's probably one of the 200 best universities in the world, right? And I think that's pretty good to go to one of the 200 best universities in the world. So that's a really good opportunity. Especially for those of you that are looking for academically, then the rankings become even less important because it's about what is the specialty. Can I go to the best school for that best specialty? So whether it's petroleum engineering or molecular biology, there it's even more so because it's what is your academic career? Am I going to get the skills that I need? And it may be that one of the worst universities in Texas has a great molecular biology research program. And that's going to be the best outcome. So, what do you want to study? Where do you want to study? What can you afford? And where can you get in? Now, all U.S. universities are going to be competitive to one degree or another. Okay, Harvard being the most competitive. And then at the very bottom, we would say some community colleges where you need a 60 on a TOEFL, proof that you're a high school graduate, and a tuition deposit. So again, there you might want to think about, what is my academic record? What is my profile? What were my notes like? And what are the scores that I can get on different tests like? Specifically the SAT for undergrad and the GRE for graduate. We often advise students to look for 3 different types of schools: your dreams, your realistics, and your safeties. Your dreams are those schools where if I got in, it would be great, but they probably should reject me. I'm at the edge of what their academic profile is. Realistic means I think I have a really good shot. And safety means I would be surprised if I don't get in. So to use an example, if you're going to ask, I'll use myself. If I was going to ask 6 women to marry me, and I hope that one says yes, maybe 2 really beautiful, maybe 2 average, and then maybe 2 that it was, they'll say yes. Okay? So sometimes we see students, they only apply to the 1 or 2 schools they really want to go to. And it's a lot of work to do this application. So you always want to be able to hedge your bets, because you don't want to get nothing but no's. Because then all the work that's gone into your application, all the testing that you've done, the TOEFL test, the GRE test, the time and energy that you've spent, it hasn't paid off. Okay? So you want to be able to have at least one option, no matter what, so that you can go and apply for an F-student visa and get the chance to study in the United States. Now, the good news about this is it allows us to eliminate schools and identify schools that fit. So, as you start to research school, determine what are going to be some of the most important factors in guiding your search. For some of you, you can start with the subject that you want to study. We had a young man who wanted to get a PhD in bioethics. Does anybody know what bioethics is? What's bioethics? I didn't.
I forget what I...
That's okay. It's like the ethics of biological study. So his research was into stem cells and unborn babies, and whether those cells could be used for medical treatment or research purposes. There are 3 schools in the United States that offer doctorates in bioethics. So we went into a resource I'll show you in just a little bit, and I said, okay, guess what? How many schools you got to research? You got to research 3 schools. We started with 1,700, instantly we're down to 3. For petroleum engineering, it's 21 masters and 11 doctorates, almost exclusively in what kind of states? What states do you think the petroleum engineering degrees are in?
Texas.
Texas? Where else? Huh? I think there's a little oil in Tennessee, but I'm not sure. Colorado. You've obviously grasped. It's places where there's oil. The Dakotas. There's actually one in Alaska, right?
Alaska,
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of oil in Alaska.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend Alaska. It's very, very cold.
Yeah.
Okay, so he knows right off the bat, I had 21 schools. We can cross Alaska off the list. It's too cold. Still check to make sure they might have a really good scholarship. And from there you can move on, okay? For others, it might be, what can you afford? And you might want to start your search based on scholarship opportunities. Now, next week we're going to be talking about funding, including the only U.S. scholarship opportunity the government offers, my government offers, and that is the Fulbright, which is, if you've heard about it, and we've mentioned it before, the full ride scholarship for master's students, the application deadline for which is in June. We're always eager to get really well-qualified Fulbright candidates, and I'll talk a little bit, if you're only interested in the Fulbright, about how researching schools can play into your Fulbright application. All right? And then finally, like we talked about, where you can get in. So what is your academic record? And here, the thing you need to think about is, I know it's difficult to translate your notes into a GPA. Instead, think about your academic performance. In your graduating class in university or baccalaureate, how was your academic performance compared to your peers? Were you better than almost everybody in your class? Were you better than literally everybody? If you were better than everybody, maybe we need to have a conversation about Harvard or some of those other really top-ranked schools. If you only beat 50% of your class, Harvard's going to be really, really tough. There would need to be some very, very, very compelling other parts of your application, okay? When I say Harvard, you can, for those people that are engineering, if you want to go ahead and substitute MIT, same thing. So, and I will email you all these links as well. First up, we have a website called College Board's Big Future. College Board is actually the company that does the SAT, the undergraduate admissions test. Now this is mostly for undergraduate. The reason I point this out is there's lots of other useful information on these things in terms of planning and trying to pay for college. The important thing for you to always remember when you're researching financial aid opportunities is that you are an international student, right? You're not an American student. So sometimes you'll see scholarships that are for American students only. Oftentimes it's best to search directly for international student scholarships. Look for schools that are directly recruiting you as students. So I list it because it's got other useful information in terms of financial aid opportunities. If you are interested in rankings, and rankings are not a bad thing, there's the most common one is what we call U.S. News. So U.S. News and World Report does a ranking of universities. So right up here, when you go to their website, it lists best colleges and best grad schools. That's what you're going to want to click on to find different programs. There's also other information available. But remember, a higher ranking is going to mean tougher admissions. So, just for argument, I'm not going to tell you. What do you think the best engineering school, graduate school is in the United States?
California.
California what?
Silicon Valley.
Stanford.
What, is that a university though, Silicon Valley? Stanford?
MIT.
MIT? All right, let's find out.
Seattle.
They say MIT is first and Stanford is second. That's pretty good. So they say MIT is first, Stanford is second, and California Institute of Technology in Pasadena is third. Right, that's near Silicon Valley, I think, right? University of California in Berkeley, Georgia Institute of Technology, University of Michigan, University of Illinois. So you can also see some information over here. These are some of their full-time tuition rates. You are not an in-state resident, you are always an out-of-state resident. Remember we talked about the difference between public and private? So you'll always want to look at those out-of-state residents. You notice that sometimes these private universities can be very expensive, whereas say Georgia Tech is $27,000 a year versus Stanford $47,000 a year. So right off the bat, I'll tell you, Stanford's a better school than Georgia Tech. But is it $20,000 better?
No, 27.
Wow, 27 is a lot cheaper, right? You can probably save your money a little bit. So you have to do a little bit of cost-benefit analysis. You can search, by the way, not just for mechanical engineering, but for any subject as well. And for those of you that have very particular subjects, this might be a good place if you're looking for a really good research university. Princeton Review is mostly focused on graduate, mainly because I put /grad school. This is a useful search engine and you can request different info. One thing I'll say about a lot of these sites is when you click on their school names, so if I click on, say, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, it'll take me to a profile that will talk about what's the percentage of students that are accepted, what's the information on application deadlines. Sometimes it'll be behind a paywall. You have to pay a subscription to get access to this information. There's a better way around this. All the information about MIT is listed in a lot of different places on the internet. So it's best just to simply Google MIT TOEFL score required. And then pretty quickly you'll get the answer. So Princeton Review, this also has a nice option that you register with them with an account. And then if you like a school, you can click on a button that says, hey, can you have this school send me some information, please? So that will not only give you a school directly contacting you with information about it, which hopefully gives you all the information about the program in one place, but then lets you establish a dialogue with the school. Maybe gives you some contact info.